daddy, the fine bitches here. Hello, everybody. I'm Alex,
And I'm Mary,
and this is
lawyering out loud.
a podcast about life, lawyering, and
All the things we're mad about.
well, Mary, I'm not mad. It's Black History Month. It's my birthday month. I ain't mad about today. So, how you doing?
I need you to know that we're going to cut back into this when you start getting mad.
First of all, you're a hater. Second of all, I'm not getting mad today. I'm serious. I am not getting mad today.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see the evolution of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
How you doing?
We are going to do the evolution of this.
How
Because
you
one
doing?
more hair who's not cooperating, things I'm mad about. How was your week, Alex?
I asked you first.
Oh, my bad. My week was fine. It was a long one, a heavy one. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like highlights and stuff like that. Was able to get a lot of clients out of custody, which is really good. Not so good when they're houseless. But besides that, just really long days. I don't know if you noticed. Usually you're like, why you ain't call me? I'm like, girl, I'm just getting out of work. And you're Cheeto president doing what he's doing. So just checking on by, girl. How about you? How was your week?
My week was pretty good, pretty exciting. Somebody lit a fire under the Immigration Services ass because I'm getting a ridiculous amount of green card approvals.
Really?
Yeah, every day I check the mail, there's a green card, at least one. Some days more than one. Cases that I've had that I've been pending for a while now are getting approved. So,
So this is unusual?
huh?
This is unusual?
Absolutely unusual.
You're the second attorney. There was another one on Instagram that said the same thing. What do you think that is?
I think they're trying to ensure that the people who can stay here do, and then they're gonna just try to get rid of as many people as they can, which is not exciting for a lot of folks. But I'm happy for every immigrant who gets a chance to stay here. So I am happy for a lot of my clients who got their green cards. Of course, whenever you have a week where you're successful like this, you get a lot of calls. People are calling and they're like, oh my God, I heard you did this for this person. What about me? What about me? And I am turning a lot of folks away, but that's part of how I'm doing. I'm doing really good sticking to what I said I was going to do. You and I had two really good conversations this week about pivoting and the things that I'm going to be doing next in terms of like my career. And I think they're exciting. So I'm excited about that as well. And I think in the coming months, I'm going to have great announcements for our listeners about things to come. So I'm excited about that as well. The other thing is I want to point out that has been a recurring theme is that a lot of people reached out to me when I spoke candidly about my struggles with chronic pain
Mm.
and with illness on my Instagram. And a lot of people apparently had no clue that I struggled with an autoimmune disease and that I lived with chronic pain. So it kind of opened up a conversation about what it's like to live in pain, to live with chronic pain and to live with an autoimmune disorder. And it felt good to know that people didn't feel isolated. I have been very outspoken about the limitations that comes with me being sick sometimes and being sick all the time. So I didn't feel isolated, but others did. So I got a chance to be there for them and to build community with them and to share with them the things that I've done. Unfortunately, there's an increase of people of color having autoimmune diseases. I don't know if you know that.
I had read that somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good for us to build community and be there for one another. So,
Sorry, I have a really good friend.
mhm.
She's an author, she's published, amazing, amazing person. And she suffers from, I can't remember what specifically, but chronic pain. And she's constantly posting about it. because she's like, people need to realize that even though sometimes you see me and you can't tell, I'm in constant pain. And she's like, and what does that look like for me as a professional, as a mother? She's outstanding and she's very vocal about it. And I know that I'm inspired by some of the stuff that she says. So I can only imagine what some of the people that didn't know, that you live with this. But it was interesting. Remember when we went to the ICE detention center, when the officer saw you with a cane, remember?
I don't remember
And
anymore.
and she told you, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. What are you doing here? Why do you have a cane?" And then you explain to her, "Oh, I suffer from this, and eventually these are, what's going to be happening to my body." And she was like, "I rebuke it. I don't want that over you."
Yeah, I think like to me one of the conversations I've been having with myself, and I'm hoping to have with people in the long term on the internet, is the ways in which white supremacy has invaded disability and the disability movement and society as a whole. Like, I don't think I'm cursed. There's nothing to be rebuked. There's no ancestral sin in me. This is not generational curse. I am somebody whose body has an autoimmune disease, and sometimes the fact that I live in an ableist world makes it hard for me to navigate around this world, but there's nothing to be rebuked. So, and I that being said, though, I appreciated her intent and I tried to handle her with care. And I want to move around the world in that way because I think what people fear more than disability when they say I rebuke it is that they fear the consequence that come with existing in a disabled body and the consequence that comes with living in a disabled body in a world that hates disabled people,
Mm,
is that you are in many ways supposed to be condemned to a life of unhappiness and suffering and isolation. So to her, me saying what my body does and what my and how my condition affects me, it's like, oh, why would you speak that over your life? But I'm like, I'm telling you that I'm living with it right now. Like,
no, right, right. If I remember correctly, you told her, "Oh, eventually this is going to lead me to be bedridden," and that's when she was like, "Oh, I rebuke that over you," and you were like, "Oh, well, it's just something that's going to happen." Like it
yeah.
wasn't.
But I think that people are not honest. Humanity is a condition that ends with us being bedridden, right? Like, all of us
Pause, girl.
get old and
Wow, wow. Bet you ain't lying.
all of us end up there. But I think the idea of existing in a disabled body and losing some parts of your mobility as a result of your disability is so frightening for people because they know how they treat the elderly. They know how people are treated
Hmm.
in spaces where their mobility is affected and their ability to make certain decisions and do certain things is affected. But that's a problem in society. That's not a problem on me or on the body that I was given, you know?
Let me ask you something. With the amount of pain that you're constantly in, and knowing what lies ahead, how, like, what do you you know I love our friendship, and I love our friendship because I learn so much from you,
Oh, thank you. I learned a lot from you too.
and I hope it's the same, girl.
Of
Like, I
course.
learned so much from you, and like, I don't know. Yeah. I think for me, hearing you say that to the detention officer, for me was like, how is this? Like, I don't know how you're, like, you're just always so on the go. Even when you're in pain, bitch, you'll be like, I'm in pain, let's go. And on to the next thing and on to the next thing. And you're always on the move. Like, I don't know how you do it. I really don't know how you do it. And then you don't sleep because we're going to put your business out there. You
Wow.
don't sleep.
Wow. Wow. Just anti-blackness has ensued already.
You forget to eat, and then you eat when you're running on E.
Yeah.
Like,
I think part of it is
you're a
honestly
workaholic, even though we crack jokes and say that you
don't
don't
work.
work. You're a workaholic.
Yeah. I think part of it is like a moment of self reflection, and maybe conversations that I've had to have with myself about what internalized ableism look like in a world that values productivity so much.
Mm,
I think even as I engage in conversation with my partner, I say to them all the time, like, I want to feel normal. And I use those terms because those are the conversations that I'm having inside of my head. And I understand and acknowledge that those are ableist conversations to have. And I understand that there is work to be done
right,
around that internalized ableism, um, while showing myself grace with the understanding that these thoughts are not mine. I never felt like something was wrong with me until I started living in a world that made me feel that way.
mm,
Right. So I know that though internalized is not inherent, like internalized ableism is part of my socialization. Right. So I don't deny myself the opportunity to evolve in my thought process and in the ways I could be better about dealing with some of the things that were taught to me about quote unquote normalcy, quote unquote productivity, quote unquote so many other things.
right,
But I can't say that a lot of my drive to do is not rooted in the fact that I feel like at some point, sooner than most, I might just run out of opportunity to do.
mm,
Um, and not being able to do or to be productive in the society means the end of something, the end of what I don't know. I don't know what in my head that looks like
right,
to me. And like my understanding of like capitalism and in society is that there will be the end of something once
mm,
you are no longer able to produce. Then something happens, something that is unknown to me, but within my socialization it was described as catastrophic,
mm,
beyond like economic need, right? Beyond like, oh my God, you might not be able to make money to survive capitalism. Like, okay, if I work really hard with all the privileges that I have, I might be able to save and not struggle financially. Yet
mm,
still, there is something about not being quote unquote productive that marks the end of something and is catastrophic in and of itself. What that is not clearly defined within civilization, because the goal of capitalism is never to make things clear, but to always make you afraid of the unknown, because that's how
mm.
you continuously lend yourself to the machine, is by fearing something that you have no idea what it is, but you know it's just catastrophic.
The words that you keep using reminds me of kind of like the conversations that were had around immigrants and deportations. And I think earlier this week or last week they had a day without an immigrant, right? And again, it's rooted on productivity, right? What do they do for us and for our economy, and what do they produce, and what do I, there was a post, I think you posted it, that was like, we stand in solidarity with our immigrant community whether they produce anything or not.
Period.
We stand with them. And but like you said, that's the conversation, that's the narrative that capitalism dictates.
Those are conversations that you and I have had all the time, and the ways in which I try to be very cautious about immigrants' narrative that are rooted in eugenics. Because once we start having conversations about what immigrants can produce in their labor, then we are saying that we are not fighting for folks to have a right to exist on this land that does not belong to white people, but rather that people who are unable to produce something in this land don't deserve to exist here. And it's a
Right.
slippery slope. And it's a slippery slope that that we constantly fall into as a society. Like, I think recently had a conversation with a couple of friends, disabled and non-disabled, about the failings of the abortion movement. And I said the biggest failing of the abortion movement is that you find as a selling point to tell to folks that you should have the right to terminate a pregnancy if you are going to have a disabled child. It's a very hard sell for me as a person with disabilities. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Like, the world sucked. I wish it was not ableist. I'm still glad I'm here. I'm very
Mm.
saddened for you that you think I shouldn't be here. Sorry to offend you by my presence, but bitch, I'm here. But those are conversations and narratives rooted in eugenics that completely have space in society, that are not shunned, that are not deemed inappropriate or scary to folks. Like, I remember when the director of the CDC at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic was like, well, we are seeing great things with the vaccine. And what we are seeing is that people who did not have other comorbidities are not dying anymore. Okay, so that means that now that only disabled folks are dying from COVID, that's fine. Okay, bet. Like, but those are the kind of narratives that are not countered in mainstream media. People routinely and casually talk about the ways in which, like, things are not harmful if they only affect folks with disabilities.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
it was a victory. We could share that clip of her just bragging about how great it was that now only disabled folks were dying from complications related to COVID-19.
I think this is a great segue into our what we're mad about, right?
Well, I'm not mad about nothing. I
Okay, then
told you it's Black History Month,
I guess
baby.
so. I think it leads us into a great segue, not only into like what we're mad about, but also lawyers in the news.
Hmm.
I think you and I would agree that ever since the first Trump administration, it emboldened people to say things that they wouldn't usually say, right? It emboldened people to say the things out loud that were supposed to be, indoor voice.
Hmm. You
And
said the quiet part out loud.
correct, that's what I meant. Yes, the
Low
quiet.
key though, low key though, I'm gonna need the opposition, like the people who are opposing like all of this narrative, to have the same energy.
Mm.
I need the same energy. Like
I
that
totally
Greyhound bus driver that told the ICE agent to gargle his balls. This is the kind of energy that I need to see for the next 4 years. Gargle my balls.
we're gonna get to that. But just the conversations that have been had in regards to, for example, DEI, right?
Mhm.
Or how people are now, I think we saw a post of people in Doral, Venezuelans, who are coming out and are upset because they're like, don't do this. Venezuelans who are coming out, and also Muslims for Trump, right? Or is it Arabs for Trump?
I'm not sure.
Hold on, I have it. I have it in my. I just posted it on my Instagram where they changed their name. Oh, it's Arab Americans for Trump have changed their name to Arab Americans for Peace. And how, for example, for the Venezuelan clip that we saw, and we're gonna post it on our page, they were very comfortable saying like, "Oh, as long as it's not us, you can go ahead and do what you want to do with those other immigrants. It's not that's not like our type of immigrant," which you had a call like that, which was wild. Yeah, so just hearing people say they weren't expecting Trump to come after them, but they were fine when he was coming after everybody else. Those kind of things, you know.
Yeah. What about it made you mad though?
Um,
Because I know you
it's a
knew
great
that I
question because
know.
I knew it. Yes, you know that I knew it.
Yeah.
You know that I knew it.
So why were you mad about it?
It's like you can't tell me that you didn't know. And you can, and I think what pisses me off is the level of comfort that you had knowing that he was going to be persecuting other people and you were okay with it. And look, just like it boils my skin that you were okay with that. as long as it wasn't
You.
you.
Okay.
Which again, I know that people operate from that space. I know that there's very particular people, especially here in Miami, that operate from that space. I mean, even the Arab Americans for Trump, right?
Oh, for peace. Be careful now.
Well, formerly known as for Trump, they put out this press release, and I just want to read the first paragraph. It says Arab Americans for Peace, formerly Arab Americans for Trump, believe that President Trump is committed to achieving a lasting peace in the Middle East that is satisfactory to all parties. Who said that? Who said that? Okay. Okay. I don't girl, I don't know. I don't know. That's one of the things that I'm mad about. What else am I mad about? Oh my gosh. The white women who are now upset, who are getting cut from the government and who are not realizing that they were the number one benefactors of DEI. And now that their jobs are being taken away, it's like, wait a minute. That's not what we meant when we said we didn't want DEI. We're white. Um, and then we can't even talk about all of the executive orders that were introduced from last week when we recorded to this week. So I'm still mad. I hear you about not being mad.
I
Mad. I'm still big
see
mad.
you're turning into Alex today.
Clearly, somebody has to.
I see that. Um, hmm.
Can we talk about Clarence Thomas?
No, no. Honestly, no. This is why I shut up. Lie. Okay, let's talk about him. What about him now?
Have you heard that he has been swearing in people for Donald Trump at his own house, at the White House, at all these other places, which, people are writing. There was an article that I read that people are talking about how that is so unprecedented because justices are supposed to be neutral. And Donald Trump just gave him a shout out, which is so funny because in his mind, I think he felt happy that he was getting this shout out, but he was like, I did this fundraiser and Clarence was there. And when I introduced him to the crowd, it was thousands of people there. And when I introduced him to the crowd, everybody went crazy. And that's when I realized, wow, this is a popular guy. Girl, girl.
Um,
Do we want to retract this so that I don't want to get you upset Black History Month?
no, we don't need to retract it because we already there.
Mm.
The only thing I have two words. Every time I hear liberals and all other parties tell me about Clarence Thomas, I only got two words for them: Anita Hill. If y'all respected black women, y'all wouldn't have had these problems. But what am I supposed to do with this bit about Clarence? We know that Clarence's wife was busing people to the January 6th riot. So, yeah, Clarence is not impartial. Newsflash of
Correct.
the year. He's married to a bigot. I told you
Correct.
already. I'm gonna have to say allegedly because I don't know this to be a fact because I've never been in Clarence Thomas's bedroom and I wish not to be. But you cannot tell me that he's not into slave play. Okay, um, that's just how I feel. That's just
Hold on.
how I feel.
Pause. Alexandra.
Yeah. In my mind, the only way you can operate with somebody who behaves the way his wife behaves because he gets sexually aroused by being called an N word. I know she must imagine
Allegedly.
he definitely has to have that sort of kink. And this is a huge parentheses, because I don't want this to come across as kink shaming. Um but I'm trying to comprehend, in which way do you volunteer yourself to exist in a home with somebody who would have you on a plantation if she had her way?
My issue, and I just want to bring it full circle to what we were saying, is again, people are now saying the quiet part out loud. And he's a prime example of it. I mean, he was never quiet about it, but to 100% be there, swearing. I mean, damn, the report that I saw said something along the lines of like that he's spent days in Washington with the president. They were like, that is unprecedented.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, they just don't give a like they're moving out here like not, which we knew, but I guess also because, you know, and I have to say this, everything that I talk about on our podcast are my views and my views only. But as someone who works for the government, the red tape that they put on me as little old me, I'm like, surely they have to have more red tape on the above.
No, they don't.
The
These
thing is
people
that
are
I know
running
they
the
don't.
road.
The thing is that I know that they don't. So it just like it first of all, it pisses me the fuck off.
But this is the thing. I think that in order to say that, you must be assuming that the red tapes are rooted in like transparency,
It
impartiality,
should
and
be.
things like that.
It
That's
should
not
be.
what it's rooted in the ability to oppress the little guy. Because truly, like, you are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to
Correct.
people with power. So who better to enforce all these arbitrary rules? And be mad if y'all want, but them rules are arbitrary because clearly they don't apply to other folk.
Correct.
So who better to enforce these arbitrary rules on than the people who can't go to the president and just be like, "Hey, yo, like, they're trying to mess with me." You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, these rules are enforced upon you and just you, not nobody else. But that's just the beauty of living in a country that makes people believe that they have rights, that make people believe that there's transparency and checks and balances. One thing Americans really good at is words. Man, y'all come up with good words. Checks and balances. No checks or balance. But yeah,
Are,
we have
are being
checks
done.
and
Correct.
balances.
Correct.
There is a man who's the president of this country who created a cabinet position that never existed before, that's giving another man, his friend who funded his campaign, unlimited access to your tax dollars and your information, and you call that checks and balances. The joke's truly on us. Truly.
No, it really is.
The joke is really on us.
You know what's another thing that I'm bad about? Did you hear about the judge in New York who resigned after saying that he can't serve as a juror since he thinks that all defendants are guilty?
I wish he was the only
He said the quiet part out loud.
one.
Now,
Indeed.
I have to say, he's not a lawyer. He was elected a judge, which is a thing, right? You don't necessarily have to be a lawyer to be a judge. The number one thing for judges is that they have to be impartial.
Yeah.
The moment a judge starts arguing with me, I tell him, Judge, you're departing from your neutral role and now advocating for the state.
Yeah.
First thing I tell him.
Hmm.
So this is wild.
But you know what else? What you don't have to be a judge. You don't have to not be a bigot. You don't have to not hate people who are presumed innocent. I don't know how they're gonna handle the cases he's been on, but
For 10
it will
years.
be handled.
10 years.
Of There's a part of me that if I had not been part of the legal system and know that a lot of them judges feel that way, I would have thought he just said that to get out of jury duty. Because that's one sure way to not be put on a jury is to say you think all defendants are guilty. Not even the
Right.
state is going to give you a hard time about this because they're like, well, we have to create this illusion of freedom and rights and processes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So not even the state would be upset if you struck somebody out of jury who said something so ridiculous. With that being said, though, he believed it. He believed it. Listen to me.
100%.
Listen to me. This was not a mistake. This was not a mistake. I 100% believe he said what you know what it is. This episode, the name of this episode is they said the quiet part out loud. Hmm. There's a name of this episode. It has been baptized. Amen.
Ah.
There's gonna be excuses. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh no, he just said that." No, the fuck, he did not. He is a judge. Okay, you don't become a judge by being an airhead. Hmm.
The judge who was overseeing the jury selection reported him. And at a judicial commission hearing, which they held for him,
Of course.
he said, quote, he understood that defendants are supposed to be considered innocent until proven guilty, but that he still felt that people wouldn't be in court if they didn't commit crimes.
This is too
Guilty.
easy. I tell you, this podcast is getting too easy. It really is. Like, I just have to come here and tell y'all about bigotry. This man is not sorry. That's what I'm telling y'all.
He stood on business.
This man knew what he said, and he, in the words of Nene Leaks, he said what he said, and he's not
Wait,
changing it.
the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct said there is no place on the bench for someone who so deeply misunderstands the role of a judge and the administration of justice. Bro, literally, the whole purpose of a judge is to be impartial. Like, that's their only job is to be impartial. And he couldn't do it. Like, I can't. I can't. Again, the quiet part out loud. Now, let's move on to lawyers in the news.
From a judge to a prosecutor.
Take us there, girl.
Our lawyer in the news this week is one of Miami's federal prosecutors who people described as intelligent, ethical, hardworking, with excellent judgment, was fired because he was involved in handling some difficult assignments, namely the investigation of President Trump for his mishandling of classified documents. So this attorney lost his job for doing his job.
And he's one of the dozen federal prosecutors who were fired
Mhm.
for their role in the classified documents and January 6th action
Mhm.
against Trump.
Yeah, this is very important for us to understand. This is y'all's idea of a democracy. This is literal persecution. If this man was to go to any other country and request asylum, saying he was being persecuted, that would probably rise to the level of it. It probably meet the standard because you are depriving someone of their livelihood based on a political move. They don't get more political persecution than that.
And not in a meeting, an email, girl, that said,
We can't trust the judgment.
trusted to assist in implementing the president's agenda faithfully. Like, what? Crazy.
As the generation who undoubtedly would have to fix a lot of the things that are happening right under our eyes as millennials. I'm hoping Gen Z are everything that our parents feared that we will become because
Mm.
we are really about nothing. But I hope that Gen Z completely checks out of this idea that they need to buy into this illegitimate system.
Mm.
There are no checks and balances. There is no such thing as three branches, okay? We have a person who is an employee of the Department of Justice. He's supposed to be part of the judiciary, receiving an email saying he needed to implement the president's agenda. This is ridiculous, okay? We are in mess. We're not talking about constitution, we're talking about presidents, okay? In courts of law. And so we are not, it's not going good. It's not going good. Today, my partner shared with me a video that was like, how does like the popularity of an idea, what are the chances of it becoming law? And the graph was pretty much showing how whether or not American people think something is wonderful or terrible, the likelihood of it succeeding is about the same, because the popularity or support of the American voter for an idea has little impact on whether or not it gets legislated or prioritized in Washington, D.C. And that's for 90% plus of Americans. The people whose ideas and things get prioritized in the lawmaking process are, you get it, the wealthy, the rich people, the elite. Their ideas are more likely to become laws if they care about them because of
Mm.
lobbying. Can somebody say Citizen United? Citizen United? Yes. Am I particularly fond of prosecutors? No. Do I believe that the federal prosecutor's office in Miami used to be an office where there was a respected entity in the legal community? Yes.
No.
I think I think that in a lot of ways, a lot of the prosecutors in the Southern District really made a name for themselves as being sharp, knowledgeable, and fair. Is that a reputation that they would maintain over the course of the next 4 years? It remains to be seen, I guess.
Mm. That part.
Hmm.
I anticipate that. I mean, I'm not shocked whatsoever that this is happening. The man literally told us he was going to do that. I think people just thought there's no way he can do it because they tend to think this man is stupid. What they don't realize is he knows exactly what he's doing.
Correct.
Exactly what he's doing. And guess what? They're gonna appeal. They're gonna file lawsuits and all that. Like we're seeing right now, some of these lawsuits are coming out and they're coming back quick, right? Like the injunction for the citizenship, birthright
Birthright.
citizenship, came back fairly quick.
Hmm.
It had to, but some of these are gonna have to take a long time being litigated. So this man knows that at the most he looks good signing papers, and in the least he's gonna get shut down eventually. But at what cost? What, like these people are out of work now.
Correct.
15.
Correct. And I
So
think one of the things that I want to highlight, and I think that a lot of people have talked about this, is we casually and often joke about, oh, we just gotta, I'm going to self care myself into the next 4 years because I'm a black woman and I did my part. I don't want to hear it. I'm a black woman. I'm resting and I'm this and I'm that. And I'm guilty of it too. But the reality of it is that some of our people are not going to make it. One of my colleagues had his client deported today without a judge signing a final deportation order for him. He had no due process. What he's going back to, we don't know. This man has been here for years. Some of our people are not going to make it. So yeah, we can be casual about this and be like, oh, I'm going to rest and go on my vacations or whatever. You're speaking from a place of privilege. Some trans youth are not going to survive this. Some immigrants are not going to survive this. Some people are not going to survive this.
There was a middle school science teacher in Miami-Dade
Mhm.
County that was detained by ICE. The teachers union confirmed it, that she went to attend her immigration hearing and was detained. She had been in the US since her youth and had DACA, and he's likely going to be deported.
But again, those of us who believes in facts, evidence, and science could see why that would be detrimental. When you have an administration who gutted the Department of Education, they could not care any
Correct.
less about the fact that these children are going to grow up to be flat earthers and not know any a goddamn thing about science.
Actually, that's what they want. So it's furthering their agenda.
Yeah. So yeah. So we must acknowledge that they are not without life shattering and life altering consequence
Mm,
for a lot of us. Like, and that can't be taken lightly. And that's not something I'm mad about. That's something that I'm just deeply saddened by. Is that when we come back up for air from the
mm,
absolute fest that will be the next 4 years, we will be asked to move on and rebuild, and we will never get a fair assessment of how many of our people we lost to this BS.
mm,
People who are going to be disadvantaged because of violence within the medical industrial complex, people we are going to lose to deportation, people we are going to lose to ignorance because they are not educated, people we are going to lose through even suicide. You
mm,
know, we are going to lose a lot of people, and these people demise and these people's perils will never be accounted for and be included in the stories we tell of what it meant to live through 4 years of this. Their stories would never be told, and the truth would never be told about what it means to exist when everything in the public discourse revolves around the fact that there's a profound desire for you not to exist.
mm. And so that leads us into our learning out loud.
What's our learning out loud this week, Mary?
Talk to us. It's a Black History fact. So this week for Learning Out Loud, we have a Black History Month fact. It's taking me back to middle school when you would do projects about African American people, and there was always Mary Thune, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. But one thing we want to focus on differently in regards to the Harriet Tubman. She was an American abolitionist, a social activist,
Come on.
and she also, period, and she also lived with a disability. She had a traumatic, I believe it's a brain injury, right? A
Correct.
traumatic brain injury when she was a child. And I believe it made it difficult even for her to walk.
Mm-hmm.
So that just puts, I feel like when I was younger, they didn't teach us that.
Yeah.
Puts into perspective the resilience and just how much more work she had to put in to be doing the Underground Railroad and the distances that she was walking. 13 missions. This week on Learning Out Loud, we're asking people to just learn a little bit more about our Black history figures and just how multifaceted they are, multidimensional, and just more than just the coloring book page that they made us do when we were in middle school, because there's so much more to say about how impactful her journey was and the work that she did, considering when you put into perspective. all aspects of her life.
I'm a huge fan of Harriet, and I think the biggest part is because Harriet with seizures like me. One up. The rest of you. And I say this,
Alexandra.
you never deserve with disabilities. Okay? You want to know about with disabilities and the disabilities done for y'all? Go read about the civil rights movement. Go read about the 504 sit-ins. Go read about the Black Panther Party and the history of the ADA and of Section 504 of the y'all don't deserve with disabilities. That's all I could tell y'all. Y'all didn't deserve Harriet then, and y'all don't deserve none of us now.
Mm.
So, from a nigga with disabilities to all of you ungrateful, you're welcome.
And with that, we wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to us. Follow us on all platforms. L Out Loud podcast at gmail.com and L Out Loud podcast on all different platforms. That's a wrap.
Bye.
Bye.